Welcome to this Nexa video, where you will learn how to check in and check out files from the Nexa PLM. The check-in procedure is when a user inserts a file from a local computer to Nexa. Let's log into Nexa as the user Paul Moll and see a few examples. There are two main kinds of check-in. The first one refers to inserting a new file in the system. No previous versions of that file have ever been inserted in the system. The second case is when we're trying to check in a new version of a file that was already present in the system. Let's see the first case. First of all, in order to check in a file, I go to the top bar and I click on the New button. Then I select File. As a result, a class form pops up. In my case, as I have not yet set a preferred class for my user, the system suggests the most general class for files. We suggest to set a preferred class for the user, the class the one uses the most. This is done by clicking on the User button at the top right of the Nexa interface, selecting Preferences, clicking on the three dots, and selecting the class from the class hierarchy. In this case, I select the class Files Viewables. Now I close the form, click again on the New button, select File, and as we can see, the preferred class is now Viewables. In any case, it is always possible to change the class during the check-in phase by clicking the Change Class button at the top right. In this case, as an example, I will change back to the class Files. Notice that the form changes according to the selected class. Among the fields of the form, the blue ones are mandatory and need to be filled in. One of the mandatory fields is the path to the file that we want to check in. When I click on Choose File, by default I'm sent to my work directory, but it is also possible to select a file from a different directory. In this case, I select the Improved Handle Assembly file and fill in the mandatory fields that are required. Before saving, I can also define links between the new file and other items already present in the database by clicking on the Links tab. Each class has predefined possible links. This other tab allows me to define the permissions of the file. Since I want to be able to edit the file after I checked it in, I'll make sure that my user and all the groups that need to use it have the right permissions to read and write this file. By default, the software engineering group has been granted all the permissions for the items of this class. Since the user I am logged in with is part of this group, it inherits the same permissions. In case I want to grant specific permissions to single users who don't belong to this group, I can select the permissions in this window. Please remember that the user permissions and group permissions are additive. In this case, I will unselect the user permissions since I already belong to the group. Once the desired links and permissions have been set, I click on the Save button and the check-in phase is over. Now the file item in Nexa comprises of two parts: the file itself, located in the Nexa vault, and the metadata of the file, status, revision, description, in the database. It is important to notice that when the check-in procedure is successfully completed, the system removes the original file from the local directory. The rationale is that the file is now safely contained in the Nexa vault, and it is better not to leave duplicates on the local system. All the files that are checked in are automatically shown in the desktop area. I can reach the desktop area from the top bar. The desktop area is a grid showing only a subset of all the items in the system. It allows the users to quickly access the files that they use the most. It is important to notice that when I add and remove items from the desktop area, this action does not change the file in the vault nor its metadata in the database. To remove a file from the desktop area, I right-click on it and select Remove from Desktop from the context menu. For example, let's remove the recently inserted file from the desktop area. To be able to find this item again, all I have to do is to perform a query for items whose name includes the word Improved, for example, and click on Run Query. The search results are displayed in the bottom area. I can even right-click on the file I was looking for and select Add to Desktop. The file is now back into the desktop area. The checkout procedure is very easy. Suppose that I want to modify the handle license doc file. From the query grid, I search for files containing the word license in the name attribute. Even if I could check the item out from here, I choose to place it on my desktop for future reference. Then, from the desktop area, I right-click on it and select the checkout option from the context menu. A green message appears at the bottom right of the screen, saying that the checkout operation was successful. The checked out file is automatically put in my work directory. Notice that there is now a small tick symbol at the left of the item, either in the desktop area or in the search results. This icon means that this item has been checked out by me and I am the only user who can modify this item. Other users can still see the file by selecting View File from the context menu, but they cannot check it out for modifications. The checkout procedure ensures that only one user at a time is able to make changes to a given item. The checkout operation does not remove the file from the Nexa vault, it simply delivers a writable copy to your work directory. I go to the work directory and I remove a line from the text. Now I want to check this file back into Nexa. Everywhere in Nexa I can access the context menu of an item by right-clicking on it. For example, from the desktop area, I right-click on Handle License and select Check-in. The form associated to this file pops up, and I am also able to modify its metadata before I commit to check-in. To complete the check-in, I click on the Save button at the top right corner of the screen. When the uploading is complete, I can see the file in the desktop area without the tick sign at its left. Now other users will be able to check it out. Nexa automatically assigned a new revision number to the new version of the file, whose later version is now AV5. Again, the local file has been removed from my local work folder, as the file is now handled by Nexa. When I click on the file, on the right-hand side of the screen there is a detailed view of the metadata of this item. In particular, if I click on the Version tab, the system displays all the versions of this item. All versions that are not the latest are marked with an asterisk to allow you to quickly spot a non-latest version of an item. Let's now see what happens when I try to check in a file without any modification. First, I check out the handle license doc file once more. Immediately thereafter, I check it back in. If I try to check it in, a form appears and I can enter new metadata for the file. However, when I click on Save, an error message pops up at the bottom right of the screen. The system has in fact detected that the file I'm checking in is identical to the one already present in the vault, and I only changed the metadata. This is not allowed to prevent a confusing proliferation of versions of the exact same file. If you haven't made any modifications to the file, or if you want to discard your changes, you will need to select the Undo Checkout option from the context menu. For example, the previous file is still in a checkout status, but it has not yet been modified. At first I modified it by adding a line, I save it and close it. Now I right-click on the file in the desktop area and I select the Undo Checkout. Nexa warns me that by selecting Undo, I will lose all the changes performed up to that point. I click Undo. The status of the item is now back to Checked In, and there is no longer a tick at the left of its name. From the context menu, I select View File and I can see that the modifications are no longer present. The file is in the exact same condition before the checkout. If I go to my local work folder, the file is no longer present. As a matter of fact, the latest version is still AV5. When one uses the Undo Checkout, no up-versioning is performed by the system. To conclude this video, let's explore the Save As functionality. The check-in and check-out procedure is a mechanism to produce different versions of the same item, but I might also be interested in reusing existing items in Nexa to create new and independent items. This action is called Save As. Let's see an example. From the desktop area, I right-click on a file and I select Manage and Save As. The system displays a form related to the class of the item I selected, where I am able to type a new name, title, description, etc. When I click on the Save button at the top right, a new file item is inserted in the system with the metadata I just defined in the form. This new file item has its own metadata in the database and its file is saved in the vault. It is completely independent from the original files used to create it, and it has been stored with version AV1. This is very useful, for example, when you want to use an existing item as a starting point for a new project. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you don't miss all the upcoming Nexa videos with new tutorials and feature updates. Thanks for watching.